Hello there, and welcome to another installment of Vodacom Diski Chat. It's good to have you along with us. My name is Thabiso Tema. Wow, things are getting pretty exciting as we hit the home stretch of the season, this 2023-2024 season. Some issues you might think are decided, but there's still plenty to talk about. And joining me for this chat, two renowned journalists, both with the SABC Sport. Gentlemen, good to have you along. Velile, good to have you as well with us. It's all done and dusted in as far as the league title.
I think there's no questions about that. Sundowns is cruising to their record-extending seventh league title in terms of the DStv Premiership. But I think what is more exciting for me, because I'm also making my debut here at home, because I was at the AFCON, we did Diski Chats there, is to see Sundowns still having something to do on the continent and on their way to that second star. And I think there's things that are aligning. When you look back in 2016, under Coach Pito, when they won their maiden CAF Champions League title, they did it in Alexandria. And possibly now, taking nothing away from TP Mazembe, the final, the second leg that is where the trophy will be hosted, will be in Cairo.
Don't think we missed that young flex that made my debut internationally. This is first time I'm like doing the local stuff. Excuse us, but it's all good. But okay, we'll come back and talk about the domestic situation and the situation with Sundowns. We'll talk about them and what they are still chasing. Let's come back home here. It's a bit of a pity that, again, for I don't know how many seasons in a row, with about 5 plus matches to play, it's already kind of done and dusted, that the conversations about second place. Being that the case, that is still a prize worth fighting for. If you're an Orlando Pirates, Super Sport United, Stellenbosch FC,
Yeah, prize to fight for, absolutely, with absolute certainty. But that's not what the chasers are after. Sundowns season in, season out, becoming the early pace setters. But if you look at that Orlando Pirates squad, I don't care what anybody says. They've got a talented squad. The players that they brought in, even in January. Yes, some might argue that what was the reasons behind Libito coming through at 32, 33 years old. But if you look at the injury history of Mnyandu as well as Mnyandu as well, you needed cover there. It's a well-oiled machine. Eric Tinkler at Cape Town City, at some stage, breaking records, winning 5 in a row. That's never been done by the club. Kaizer Chiefs, of course, the expectation is that even when Molefe took over, he would do better than Athazwani, but that hasn't been the case. So there are cup competitions in between, Orlando Pirates doing well, but we were talking about it even before we started, that they actually haven't won the league title since 2011. That's quite a long stretch for a club as big as Orlando Pirates. So to obviously be chasing for cup competitions and CAF Champions League sport, it's not enough for their fans. But for now, obviously they're happy people.
Absolutely. They have just hit up something of a purple patch in recent matches now, like they are the last 3-4. Although sometimes you just don't know which Orlando Pirates team is going to show up. One thing you do know about Pirates is that they will create chances. But now what we're seeing is they're taking chances. What did they score? 11 goals in 2 matches?
Sure. Yeah, in fact, if you want to extend it, you can say 20 goals in 6 matches. That's what they've been able to do. And 7 of those goals came in a league game against a top-flight team. It's not like you're scoring 7 goals against Power Lines or Crystal Lake that they scored against Crystal Lake in the Nedbank Cup against a lower division team. So I think for me, there's just something about Pirates in the second round, especially under coach Jose Rivero. If you look back at last season, they collected 35 points from a possible 45. I think that included 11 wins. And this year already, they've only lost 1 game in all competitions. So only 1 game. And when you look at the matches that they've been playing, and now they are scoring. And also, you have Orlando Pirates goals coming from different parts of the field, even from defenders. You have Mabasa. I think the return of Mabasa to Pirates has also added something there, even though it has dimmed the light of Zakali Lipasa. But you have to look at the competitiveness that we see there in that Pirates team. Maybe it then calls for what happens in the first round, because they don't have this kind of performance, especially in the league. Even though this year we can already say this season they are counting MTN 8 title that they have. But in the league, I think it says something that last season they had this kind of performance, and again now they've got this. The only sad part for me is not to be talking about Orlando Pirates having had a good run in the CAF Champions League. Because I felt we were going to do a Yanga and Simba and have Sundowns and Orlando Pirates in the knockout phase. Not just in the group stages, but in the knockout phase of the CAF Champions League. And I think that is also something that should be pushing them. But I think they've got a strong competition from Stellenbosch, because Stellenbosch has done very well. And when I look at their remaining fixtures in terms of their run-in, the strong matches, when I look there, maybe TS Galaxy, also their next fixture against the Skukune and Sundowns, and their penalty mid fixture as well. So it's going to be very difficult. And I mean, 21 game unbeaten run that they have.
16 wins, 40 goals scored, 10 conceded. That's quite impressive.
That is, and I think that you definitely cannot ignore what Stellenbosch have achieved this season. I think the consistency that they have built, because it's not just about some flash in the pan performance in the cup. They've taken that league, that form into the Premiership as well, and have made themselves a very difficult side to beat. Pirates fighting on two fronts now. Velile pointing out that they seem to find their best form, in the latter stages of the season. It's a pity that they have already. The coach has been forced to concede and put the white flag up that the Premiership title is gone. How then do they approach this remaining matches? They've got the Nedbank Cup to think about. They've also got this chase for a Champions League spot. Yeah,
Titi, he's made it clear in a lot of his press conferences that he wants to play CAF Champions League. Obviously, they were knocked out by Jwaneng pretty early. A lot of people didn't expect Orlando Pirates to be knocked out. And I wonder, had they gone through, historically, obviously Pirates, as the further they go in CAF inter-club competitions, their league form suffers. But you can see in this instance, when they knocked out early, they had fresher legs, one would argue. But the coach wants that, obviously, in his his CV or his experience as a coach in the South African Premier Division as well. So that remains a focus, I think, to try and better that. Because he was also asked, Coach, do you feel a sense of deja vu? You're in a similar position as last year as well. You had won the MTN 8, you reached this stage of the competition in the Nedbank, and you were chasing for second spot at the time. But he reckons there's a lot of progress. On the log table and in terms of results, it might look like they are in a similar position, but he sees a lot of progress in how they are, converting chances and that. But yeah, Orlando Pirates, Stellies for me look like, shoe in for that runners-up spot. I don't see.
Really?
I don't see where.
Not yet.
Yeah, for me.
I'm hoping that's at least one race that will go to the last game.
Yeah.
We can't have everything settled so early. Let's hope that one, and possibly, I think even the relegation battle may go down to the last day of the season.
Relegation.
One hopes, yeah.
Yeah, I think if Spurs don't get points in the next 3 matches, the bottom spot will be decided.
Yeah.
But I still think when it comes to the playoff spot, there's going to be many twists and turns there. Even though I think Swallows, there's 1 point that they pick here, and then the 1 point they get here could work well for them. So, but
you're still counting Swallows in the relegation zone.
No, playoff spot.
They should be good.
I think it's for me. It's definitely Spurs and Richards Bay. That's where.
I don't think so.
They are going down.
No, that probably in terms of who would automatically go down and who would go into the playoff spot. Maybe.
There are some 6-pointers that are still have to be played between the teams.
Those are going to be good.
That are closer to the playoff spot.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just the playoff spot. But I just don't think that, because look, also you have to look at the type of players that Spurs have got. Can some of those youngsters really go and fight in away matches?
It's big pressure.
So it's not going to be easy. And I look at the history of Spurs, especially when they were trying to get promotion. When it gets into that decisive moment, and that's when they were dropping heads. If you look at the last time when they lost promotion, to Swallows.
They led right through.
Yes, and I mean they were supposed to just get clean promotion, straight promotion. And they ended up going via the difficult route of playoffs.
Well, what this will be as well is a lesson again, is if ever it was needed, about the jeopardy that comes with going into the playoffs. It means that your season finishes much later, and the new season comes much sooner. No time to plan, no time to beef up your squad, and you're already on the back foot. So that is a big problem with that playoff, and even with the playoffs currently the way they are. But hey, that's what the teams have voted for, and they keep it. They're the ones who can change it, of course. Now, I want us to move away from that club action for a moment and talk about our international situation, or our national teams. Big disappointment for Banyana Banyana. I mean, the old enemy once again coming back to haunt us in the form of Nigeria. I think over 2 legs, a very disappointing performance from Banyana Banyana.
Yeah, when Banyana didn't get the results that we were all hoping for in Abuja, and they went to Loftus for the second leg, my head dropped. This is number 1 and number 2 on the continent. They were both at the World Cup just last year, and they both did pretty well perhaps by their standards. Yes, we would have wanted them to progress even further. That Nigeria team is strong. I mean, afterwards, listening to Coach Randy Waldrum talk about their clean sheets record, they were on an incredible run of clean sheets, about 6 or 7 games or so, perhaps even more.
Out of 8 matches,
if I'm not mistaken. And I knew that Coach Desiree Ellis had a mountain to climb. Yes, he made some tweaks here and there up front, playing with the front three to try and get the goals, obviously to trouble Nigeria, but they were so disciplined that after the first half, you could kind of sense, even the crowd. Yes, the crowd was there pushing Banyana Banyana, but you could feel it, that they can see that it's going to be a tough team to break. Disappointment, a team that's won the AFCON, gone to the World Cup, come out of the group stages. The Olympics was what was missing for that group. I know we've been there before in the past with the older generation, but that group, given what they've achieved in the last couple of years with Desiree Ellis, this would have been the holy grail.
Yeah, and I think for me it's sad for the coach mostly because she's been to 2 World Cups and the great achievement, because it's something that we've never been able to do, and won the AFCON, who are the reigning African champions. But it's just this one. The last time she went to the Olympics, she was an assistant to Vera Pauw in 2016 in Rio. So this meant a lot for her. But I think, to be honest, I think Nigeria were the hungrier ones. Yeah, they were more hungry for this one. They have not been to the Olympics since 2008 in Beijing.
Sure.
They are not the African champions as we speak currently. So this meant a lot for them, and you could see, even with just their tactical application, especially in this return leg, how they managed to contain our attackers. And I sensed that there was also a little bit of fear from us, even going into the first game in Abuja, just by some of the things that were just happening. Because I think, for instance, one of the things that happened is that we didn't really have to get an audience from the coach to talk about. Even though personally I did have a one-on-one, but squad announcement and all those things, we didn't really get that. You could sense the pressure that was there in the team.
When people depart from their normal routines, they start to think,
announcements, pre-match conference, flash interviews at the airport.
And then we must come to the 2 squads. Let's look at those 2 teams, pound for pound. And yes, we managed. I think going into these games, we had beaten Nigeria in 4 out of 5 matches before this game. But you look at the quality in that Nigerian team. Almost all the players playing overseas, playing for top clubs. You look at the Asiswat Osholas. You look at the Rashidat, the captain for Ajibade, who was also a teammate for a very long time with Tembi Khatlana as well, So I think it's also a lesson to us, and we did ask the coach about this, that yes, we've had these players who are playing for top leagues or top clubs, and we can see their quality. But I think the problem with Banyana is the gap the gap between locally based players and players who are playing overseas.
There was a
It's too
point
big.
where we had quite a number of our ladies going abroad, but it seemed like that,
Almost went backwards.
yeah,
in
we
a
almost
way.
went backwards. Now, if you look at the makeup of the team, there's a lot of Mamelodi Sundowns players, there's a lot of UWC players because they are the ones doing well in the Super League, but our ladies also abroad are moving club hopping, and I understand they've said for financial reasons and that, but some of them are also coming home, which is a problem. We should have more.
And I was recently on a space hosted by Mahlomola, and there we had Coach Shoti, you had Coach Jerry, Coach Dunga, some coaches in the Hollywood Super League, and these conversations are also coming out to say that we seriously need to revisit how we're doing things, because if you look at a team like the Copper Queens in Zambia, this back-to-back AFCON. In fact, Olympics for them, they were also at the World Cup as well. And when you look at individually, even the players that they are exporting, I mean, a player from Zambia is holding the record now for the most expensive player in the world when you look at an African player who's been sold. So these are some of the things that we really need to look at, both the people who are in charge of women's football and also everyone who's around, including the clubs.
Yeah, and by the way, you mentioned the Copper Queens there. I mean, this is a team where domestically they don't have the resources that we have that have been pumped into women's football in this country. But yet, look at what is possible and what they can achieve. Of course, inevitably, when there is a failure to qualify for a major tournament, then of course, the knives are out, and then the spotlight falls on the coach. And the conversation has started, and I think it is a fair one to have. Has Desiree Ellis taken this side as far as she can? Let's get your thoughts, Mazola.
Yeah, it's a difficult one if you look at her success, winning the WAFCON, getting the team past the group stages at a World Cup, and then obviously people are now nitpicking on her failure to qualify for Paris. As far as I understand, her contract was going to run up until after the Olympics. But over the weekend, the SAFA president has come out to say, she's not going anywhere. There's not a lot of quality coaches to look elsewhere. She is, our lady for the job. People are also questioning some of her tactics. In New Zealand, how we were maybe take the lead or chasing games and then where we're supposed to close them off and things like that. And of course, those things will come up. Same with this qualifier for the Olympics against Nigeria. People questioned her lineup, leaving Hilda on the bench, although she did say that Hilda reported that she was ill and wouldn't be able to start. So I personally think Desiree should continue, perhaps maybe aid her by giving her a stronger technical team, more support. I don't know exactly what that would look like from a SAFA point of view, but I still believe the coach has to be given some credit. She's won back-to-back, football coach of the year on the continent as well.
What about Bafana Bafana then? It's been a big year for Bafana Bafana. Finally getting to a point where you're saying, they're taking their rightful place on the continent. For the longest time, even South African fans were yearning for a Bafana Bafana side that competes. And here we came back with a medal against all odds.
It was lovely to be in Cote d'Ivoire as a South African. We were the cream of the crop. We were popular journalists because now our Bafana Bafana team was doing so well. I'll be honest, I thought at the very least we would get out of the group stages, given our history at AFCON competitions and the fact that we were not qualifying for most of them. In Cameroon, Velile traveled there and he was watching other teams, other national teams instead of his own. But when Hugo Broos, given his pedigree as a 2017 AFCON winner, there would have been some hope. And I think the coach now, I'm glad that he's still in the job. There was a lot of rumors and speculation about whether he would take the job at Club Brugge or whether he would go to Tunisia. The Tunisians even fabricated stories that he'd signed a contract and he was headed to North Africa, but he's still the coach of Bafana Bafana. And I would love to see him take Bafana to the 2026 World Cup and obviously the 2025 WAFCON. It was great to finally wear Bafana Bafana jersey with pride and not.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have definitely taken a big step, and I think it's important here that credit has to go to Safa for sticking with their man. There were already noises every time Bafana Bafana stumble. We draw a game that people expected us to win. Suddenly, it's like, nah, how do you draw against Namibia? Get this guy out. Safa have backed him, they've stuck with him, and they've got their rewards now.
Yeah, and I think at some stage we're on a 13 or 14 game unbeaten run. And close to 2 years we had not lost a game in that period. And I think for me, it helped that we have a coach who understands African football. Even though he had only coached one country, by the way, on the continent, that is Cameroon. But I think for me, one of the highlights following Coach Hugo Broos was at the AFCON. Some Cameroonian journalists came to our camp, and there was a big game happening in the other semi-final. The big game, in fact, I think semi-final or quarter-final. No, I think it was the quarter-final. And we were in Yamoussoukro, Cape Verde. We were playing against Cape Verde. And on the other side, I think it was Mali and Cote d'Ivoire. But these guys came to us and they were saying, in Cameroon till today, we still curse the day we released Coach Hugo Broos because the situation is not the same in Cameroon. And for me, it goes back to, sometimes you don't know a good thing that you've got until it's gone.
Until it's gone.
And that is the day, then I was like, okay, here. And
that's when you started appreciating Hugo a bit more.
Exactly. And here at home, I would also receive and hear a lot of people receive stories like that. Sundowns players, Hugo is relying on Sundowns players. And, I remember in one of the first press conference engagement I had here at home with Coach Rulani. And I said to him, thanks God, Coach, you have these talented players. But one thing that I picked up from that tournament was that you have this well-coached Sundowns players, and the way Coach Hugo has been able to also use them in a way that they can adapt to different approaches that is coming up with. Yeah. So in that way, you are crediting the technical team at Sundowns for the good work that they had to have these well-coached players, but also giving credit to the technical team led by Coach Hugo Broos.
That brings us nicely then to the last subject that I wanted to touch on in this chat, and that is Mamelodi Sundowns. You mentioned it a little earlier. They are not only they walking to the Premiership title yet again, but still very much in the hunt. They've already got the African Football League trophy in the cabinet. Now, the one that we all know they covered the most, 2016 is a long time ago.
I think also we must talk about how Sundowns has been able to do this, not just on the field of play, but off the field as well. Because I recall in 2013 when Pirates lost to Al Ahly in the final, and also I think even in 2015 when they lost to Etoile du Sahel in the CAF Confed, the talk around that time was how a heavy load of these matches leads into the next season for a team to struggle. And I think Pirates in the season
that very season,
yes,
Eric Tinkler struggled. I think they finished
exactly. So, exactly. Remember, I think even Coach Roger Tessa, he left after 2013. But Sundowns has been doing it differently. Ever since then, Sundowns, even from the 2016 time, they've been dominant, winning the league titles. And that's something, so you have to, how are they able to do this? And remember, here in the PSL, it's different to how things are managed in the Egyptian league, for instance. And that's why the PSL is pushing for Sundowns to also finish the league program in the same program like most of the other teams. Unlike in Egypt, where you have other teams on 15 matches, Al Ahly is still on 8 matches. So that demanding schedule and the way, Sundowns in the month of April is playing 9 matches.
It's crazy. Yeah.
But they're still unbeaten.
That is why you have that's why they build the squad, the size of the squad that Sundowns have. For you, what will it take for them to bring this one home? I mean, if you look, it seems as if, like Velile put it, the stars are aligning. If you look at the way the remaining teams now in the draw.
Yeah, I think a little bit more of the same of how they've approached the Champions League this season. Coach Rulani said on the back of that disappointment last year when they lost it at Loftus, when they were so close, learned to box clever, a bit more aggressive. I mean, he even said, use the word dirty at times, because over the years, top teams, he used examples from overseas, used examples from clubs on the continent that they adjusted, they tweaked their game plan slightly in the CAF Champions League to be able to get over the hump, because that there it's about the results more than anything at this stage of the competition.
You must learn to win ugly.
You must learn to win ugly if you have to, and I think there's an enormous amount of pressure on Rulani Mokwena to deliver this one on the back of money spent on players from South America, money spent on players locally, whether it's your Teboho Mokwenas, Ronwen Williams, you name them, to deliver. I don't think Sundowns are buying all these top players to win.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure, and to win the DStv Premiership. They've won, 6, 7 in a row. Mm-hmm. They are doing it also to dominate the continent.
Yeah, but also there's extra motivation, especially
Club
in this
World Cup, yeah.
fixture against Esperance. The expanded Club World Cup. I hear there's a possibility, just appearance close to R1 billion. So and for me that is why it's important that a club like Orlando Pirates, because in as much as they are doing well domestically, but you look at the rankings there at FIFA, Chiefs is ahead of them. Chiefs is on, I think, position 11 currently of the teams that can be in contention for that spot. So,
and that's because of their most recent form in the continental competition.
Yes, and the cup that counts more there is the Champions League more than the CAF Confed, because even the future of the CAF Confed is not guaranteed because of the African Football League. So I think, especially in this semi-final, the sooner they knock out Esperanza, they've qualified. But I think one of the tests, or maybe one of the things that make me comfortable with Sundowns is that Sundowns doesn't really struggle against North African teams. It's mostly teams from the sub-Saharan African region that give them a challenge. And I think if there's one thing...
Who would have seen them struggling against the East Africans,
Yes, but I think if there's one thing that Sundowns going forward in terms of the recruitment, in as much as it is good to have the South Americans, but they need to revisit the profiling of their players, because we don't see a lot of maybe African players in terms of, especially from West Africa. So I think that's something that, because if you look at some of the most successful African teams, they always have players on there. I remember even in 2016, they had Bangali at centre back. So you need just one or two of them in your team.
Unfortunately, sadly for them, they had unearthed an absolute gem in Nasir, but unfortunately, injuries just put paid to that. They had unleashed an absolute gem.
Quality player, yeah.
Gentlemen, we're going to have to leave it there. Absolutely fantastic chat. Great insights. As always, you guys give us a proper value for money. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Let's hope it will be the kind of climax that we want to the season, with Sundowns winning the Champions League, while Pirates will be hoping to do a treble of sorts, actually, because they still I guess it's a treble in the sense that if you get into a Champions League spot, it is a trophy of sorts. It's a trophy of sorts, but more importantly, they want to defend that Nedbank trophy. So thank you so much, Mazola, Molefe, Velile, Mnyandu, SABC Sports journalists that have been with us. And of course, thanks to you for joining us. So be sure to look out for the next Vodacom Diski Chats. And we are in for quite a run-in and a fantastic end to the season. Let's hope it lives up to the billing. From myself, Tabiso Tema, and everyone here at Vodacom Diski Chats, see you next time.